And welcome to Guy at the Movies Live, your weekly source for the biggest movie news and discussion, with special guests popping in along the way. This is episode 2. Tonight, I'll be joined by Griff Schiller to discuss last week's news about Michael Keaton being in discussions to reprise his role as Batman and what that may mean for the future of DC movies. First, however, we'll dive into some of my favorite news stories from the past week. As always, if you're watching live here on YouTube as part of Guy at the Movies Live, I'll be interacting with your comments throughout the show as I can. So fire away. If you're listening via the Guy at the Movies podcast, head over to the link on Anchor or hit the link in the episode description to leave a voice message. In future episodes, I'll be playing and responding to some of them at the end of the show. Finally, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment wherever you are watching. Now let's get to some of the news. I hope everyone is having a great week so far. It's a short week here in the US, so hopefully we're all powering through. But that doesn't mean we haven't had any movie news released in the past week, so let's touch on it now. So with movies like Tenet and Mulan being pushed back, they are the big blockbuster films of the summer. Theater chains are pushing back their reopening dates. Regal Cinemas will begin reopening in the States on July 31st, when Russell Crowe's Unhinged is now currently scheduled to debut, while Cinemark will open most of its theaters a week earlier on the 24th. AMC is targeting a date of July 30th for about 450 of its locations. But with the pandemic raging throughout the States especially, these dates hopefully will stick, but that remains to be seen. In other news, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is getting another reboot. Another one. Nickelodeon is said to have enlisted Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and James Weaver to produce a new CG take on the Turtles in a Half Shell, who have not been seen on the big screen since 2016's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows, which starred Megan Fox. While critical reception for that film was better than its 2014 predecessor, the box office performance was still underwhelming. Here we go again. Margot Robbie has been tapped to lead the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie for Disney, one of 2 films in the works at the Mouse House about Pirates of the Caribbean. Robbie's female-led film will be written by Christina Hodson from Birds of Prey and be a completely original story. The second film is said to be a reboot of the popular Johnny Depp series, and no word yet on whether Depp himself will return as Captain Jack Sparrow. So how about you guys with Dennis Nedry? Remember him? He's the computer geek, the Seinfeld character, or the Seinfeld actor, I should say, who was in the first Jurassic Park. Came to an untimely end, unfortunately, but definitely left a mark. He's the one that's given a can of Barbasol in the first Jurassic Park, in which he is expected to transport stolen dinosaur embryos. How about that man in the red shirt that gave him said can? Well, that character's name is Lewis Dodgson, who we once again will see on screen in the upcoming Jurassic World Dominion. In the books by Michael Crichton, Dodgson has a larger role than we have seen thus far, ultimately becoming the head of InGen rival Biosyn Genetics. So the character will be played by actor Campbell Scott, who replaces the original actor due to the latter's current criminal incarceration, which we won't get into. But this is kind of an interesting casting choice, I think, or at least an interesting inclusion about the character. We haven't seen him since the original on-film Jurassic Park, which I think is really fascinating. It shows that the filmmakers are really diving into the lore of Jurassic Park and the original source of the story, which was Michael Crichton's books. So yeah, who knows? This is a really fascinating twist. We know, spoiler alert, that at the end of Jurassic World 2, we had the dinosaurs running rampant in the States on the mainland. So what this looks like moving forward is anybody's guess. We know that other original characters are going to be back from the series, hopefully not just as a quick flyby like Jeff Goldblum in the last film. But this is kind of exciting to me. I think that's kind of neat, right? Definitely going back to some predetermined, or I guess existing is the word I'm looking for, existing storylines that haven't been played out on screen. And maybe there's something to it. Maybe there is an interesting way to weave Dodgson back in, even if it's not the original actor that will be playing him in the upcoming film. But hey, when you have films that are coming out so far apart, I mean, the original was, I think, 1994. So we're literally 26 years later, and they're just filming Dominion or going back to film Dominion now. So more power to them. I mean, if they can make it work, I'm excited to see it. And, speaking of Jurassic World, and this is the final story before we get to Griff in a little bit. Colin Trevorrow, director of Jurassic World, is developing an original take on Atlantis, which I'm pretty pumped about. This is for Universal Pictures, but the new film is said to focus on the lost continent inhabited by a multicultural civilization that possesses advanced technology. So my read of this is that we're not getting the typical Atlantis story where we're underwater and, it's the land or the nation that sank. But we are getting a different take on it. We are getting an original Atlantis story, and there's something to do with some advanced technology that I'm sure we're all battling over. I'm sure it's, something that someone wants to get their hands on. It's kind of a similar story to, what you're seeing with Jurassic World. There's, the who wants to kind of make sure that they can weaponize the dinosaurs and create their own. And that's really the whole story of that. It's a whole story of a lot of different films, right? So this is kind of interesting. It's definitely not Aquaman Atlantis, but it does sound really intriguing. I think it's pretty fascinating, though, that they would go this route with an Atlantis story as Aquaman 2 is in the mix. And that's coming down the road. Clearly, we're talking about two different studios here. But, how much Atlantis can really go around. So I think that's a really interesting development for Colin Trevorrow. I know he was linked to or said to be developing a trilogy for Star Wars a while back. And I'm not sure. I don't remember fully if that was taken off the table, but it's definitely something that we will keep an eye on because, he could be a good addition to taking, a different corner of the universe over in Star Wars land and doing something with it. But speaking of that, we have Aquaman 2 coming down the road. We have, a lot of different DC films that is going to lead us into the chat that we'll have with Griff coming up. What we will be talking about is Michael Keaton, as well as how his involvement is going to really impact a lot of the DC movies potentially moving forward. So we'll get to that in just a few minutes. But, aside from these news stories, the one thing that I will tell the rest of you to do and encourage you to do, I should say, is keep an eye on guidethemovies.com as well as other websites where you will be hearing more and more about the different movie date changes, the movie release dates that are being pushed back, as well as some of the movies that are being moved straight from film from theaters that will be going straight to video on demand. An example of that we heard about today is First Cow. First Cow was in theaters when the pandemic hit back in March, and it was well received. It's an A24 film. A24 has a really good track record right now, and that is something that's pretty exciting that we'll have the chance to see it next week. The hope is that we will not have to pay $20 here in the States for it. But that's definitely something that I'm probably expecting to see, right? A lot of these releases back in the theaters, or back on video on demand have been pretty pricey. So I don't know if that's your thing. Let's hit the comments real quick, see what we got going on. We got, God, I want to go back to work. I hear ya. Luke is going to see Mad Max on Sunday and Dunkirk possibly on Friday. Be safe if you do. That will be fun to get back to the theaters. I myself, as you may have heard last week when I was chatting with Sir Sean Chandler, I'm not sure if that's something that I want to be doing right off the bat. But I'm really thinking about it. I do miss the movies. I have mentioned this, a little preview, I guess, for a podcast that I was on last night that will be out tomorrow morning, the Real Game Movie Show. We were talking about this, and theaters are kind of my therapy. I absolutely love going. I absolutely think that they are relaxing to me, and it's nice to dive into a movie, even if it's a bad movie, to really discuss or to really kind of lose yourself in the experience. So what better time to be able to do that than in a world right now that's going absolutely insane and has a lot of problems that need to be addressed. So I don't know. If they can ensure safety and all is good there, then I will be very, very happy to go back to the theaters. I miss it dearly. I tweet Regal often about that, but we'll see what happens. What about Second Cow was another comment I'm seeing. That is a funny joke. Hee hee ha ha. but we shall see. But yeah, so who knows? Who knows where we're going? Actually, I see another comment here that goes back to the Atlanta story, which I think is kind of funny. So Black Panther, but underwater. And that's true. I mean, what we're hearing is that the sequel to Black Panther is going to feature Namor, who's kind of, the Marvel Aquaman, very similar in that sense. So we might be diving into that whole situation once again, where we're exploring a different version of Atlantis. So all could be said, when all said and done, we could be seeing 3 different versions. And, I don't know. Is that something we really need? I would like something original. And I guess, I'm kind of smacking myself in the face here because I did just say that I really enjoy that it's an original concept that Trevorrow is bringing forward. But I don't know. Is that really something that we need, that many Atlantis takes in 1 year or whatever it's going to be? We already have a lot going on next year with, different films that are going to be piled into the same weekends because of everything being delayed in 2020. So I think differentiation is even that much more important. Prime example being My Spy, which, I just reviewed today. I watched it and pretty much I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was average. Silly, but kind of stupid in some ways as well. But there was a Dave Bautista film that was supposed to come out right around the same time as My Spy, and it slipped in my mind what it was called. But there was fear that they were going to become conflated because it was the same actor. But I also think or same actor in a similar type of movie. But I also think that that's the worry we get with these stories, right? We get these films that all try to tell a similar story or try to riff on source material that we all know well and good and through. But how much different can they really be at the end of the day? And so I think we end up playing certain topics out that really do not go towards the creativity that really should be out there in cinema today. We see a lot of the creativity popping up in independent films and A24 and different things like that. But when it comes to these larger budget films, we just keep playing a lot of the same things over and over again. But hey, I'm all for an original take on Atlantis. I think that could be a lot of fun. So I am definitely holding out hope that it will be great. But yeah, so they're the biggest news stories of the week in my eyes. More can be found on guyatthemovies.com. I'm constantly updating that with the latest. I'm a movie news buff. I'm always up for chatting for it, so feel free to shoot me a message. But one story I didn't touch on, and I'm going to jump into this because I see that he has joined the back room here on Fantastic StreamYard. It broke last week and then received an interesting twist thanks to the news broke by Griff Schiller on the Sean Chandler podcast. Thankfully, to talk about this news and what it may mean for DC movies moving forward, Griffin himself joins us.
Hey,
Griffin,
how's it going? Hey, man, how's it going? I'm doing pretty well here. How about yourself?
Hey, can't complain here. It's a beautiful day outside. It's not beautiful; it's pouring out. But here we are. What's going on in your neck of the woods? You've been pretty busy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm actually getting ready to visit some family over the 4th of July weekend, so that's nice. But yeah, I mean, I've been busy doing some journalist work, some interviews and whatnot, getting those ready and completed. I got a few movies I have to review before I leave on Thursday. So yeah, it's a little hectic, a little busy time, but it's good. It's all good.
Building that Schiller empire over there, right?
Of course, yeah.
So, hey, I want to dive into this story that you broke last week. I mentioned the Michael Keaton story last Tuesday night when we did the live here, but of course, the next day you broke some fun news on Sean Chandler's podcast. So,
yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about that. What do you know? What have you heard?
Yes, I mean, the big thing was that, so Michael Keaton's for sure in talks. He's for sure coming back. They're looking his role is basically going to be an extended cameo or a small role. I know some people were a little unclear as to what I meant by cameo there, but I very clearly meant an extended, just sort of small role. So it's not going to be anything substantial or big or whatnot, but it's going to be
Oh,
like glitching.
Yeah, you're glitchy a little bit.
Really lag here in the that and whatnot. So,
all right. Well, hopefully it will catch up here.
So I just want to make sure that I'm not like lagging out or anything for you.
Yeah, Griff, you just lagged out a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Here, let me try and fix that.
Sounds good.
Issues all day, and I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll put you out real quick,
for sure.
But,
no, it's no problem. Sometimes this happens.
Hey, it happens to us. I'll remove you real quick, let you do that, and bring you back in.
Just let me finish. Let me get that. Sure. Yeah, that works.
All right, sounds good. So yeah, going back to what Griff was talking about, the news, or at least the first part of the news, and I won't spoil the rest of it, but we have learned, or at least Griff has learned from sources, that Michael Keaton is definitely in talks to reprise his role as Batman from Tim Burton's movies. And we likely will not be seeing too much of him in the upcoming Flashpoint movie, or the movie version of The Flash based on Flashpoint. But we will be seeing a cameo, so meaning he will make an appearance, and it will likely establish, him in there for some reason. And we'll get to talking about the DCEU a little bit and what this could mean for that moving forward. But it's fascinating news. So you guys in the comments, what are you thinking about that? What do you make of the news that Michael Keaton might actually be making his way back to reprise his role that he really seems to have enjoyed? He's mentioned it a few times. He's been kind of more active, I guess, in the movie scene or in film scenes right now. When you think about his role as Vulture in Spider-Man: Homecoming, I believe he knocked that out of the park. He was a fun person to have in that role. So it'd be nice to see him back in the comics, or the comic realm and comic book films. Griff, you good to go? Pop you back on here.
Oh. I don't know if it's glitching anymore.
We'll pop you back up.
Okay.
So technical difficulties there, but we'll get right back to it. But yeah, so you guys in the comments, what are you thinking about that? It is really fascinating to me, just because we have heard a lot of rumors, and we'll touch on this in a few minutes, but Jeffrey Dean Morgan was also rumored to be being considered to come back in that role, or not that role specifically, but as his role as Thomas Wayne. And if you're familiar with the Flashpoint paradox, and especially the animated film that was out a few years ago, you definitely know that Batman goes on to, or I guess to start, the initial murder of the Waynes. It isn't the parents, it's Bruce Wayne that is killed, and Batman is actually Thomas Wayne moving forward. So I guess that's the real question. Will we see a version of that? Will we see him playing in the same sandbox as Michael Keaton? And will we see any of our other Batmans? Does this mean that, I don't know, I want to go down this line, but do you think that we'll see Val Kilmer, George Clooney? I doubt that we're going to see all of them, but it does open things up if we're going a multiverse direction. So I really, I see a comment here that's saying they think that the DCEU is very disjointed to the point where they can't really call anything connected. So they're trying to reset it with Flashpoint. And we'll get to that in a little bit, but that definitely is my take on it. I think it is a very smart way to go. But hey, we'll see what happens there. I'm pretty pumped for it. I'm just very interested to see how they do it, because as we know from comic book adaptations, we don't always see that it translates directly from page to screen. There always is a new interpretation of it. There always is a new way that it is being made, relevant and applicable to what's going on with the rest of the DCEU or the movies. So think about Marvel. Those stories aren't necessarily ripped from the pages, but they're intertwined and adapted. So I'm wondering what we're going to see with that. I think that that's really a fascinating exercise that DC is probably going through. And I'm wondering if that's how they plan on incorporating, the existence of the Snyder Cut in a way. There could be something cool with that. Who knows? There also was the rumor that Green Lantern might be making an appearance in the vein of Ryan Reynolds. I highly doubt that's happening. I am someone that doesn't really subscribe to that being a possibility. It just doesn't sound right to me. But we shall see. We'll see what happens with that. So we are just going to hang tight here for a few seconds. So if you're here, just hang tight. Let's do some chatting. Actually, I see. I'm just waiting for the casting of Reverse Flash. I am too. Who do you have for Reverse Flash? Because I have some thoughts on that. And I don't know. I'm excited to see where they go. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there to explore more superhero villains than we've seen in previous films and get away from some of the basics that we see all the time, right? We started to with the potential introduction of Darkseid in Justice League 2017, which, we're now getting next year. But what are we going to see in terms of some of the more minor ones that have battled with the Flash and Reverse Flash and kind of how all that craziness goes? Realistically, I'm most excited for superhero-wise is The Boys Season 2. Yeah, I haven't watched Boys Season 1 yet, but I've heard great things. So that's dropping soon from what I understand, which will be, or September maybe it is. So that would be great. I see Just Give Me Battinson. That would be cool. Apparently Affleck just signed a contract. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that because there also were rumors that Warner Brothers, or what is it called? HBO Max. They wanted Affleck back for a TV show of some sort. So I don't really know what's going on there. Again, it sounds like they have some sort of a plan. I've seen tweets from people involved that have said, there's a plan and it's exciting. So I hope that's true. It seems like the problem has never been establishing the plan. The problem's always been keeping to the plan and not getting shell-shocked when one movie doesn't do as well as the others and, abandoning a vision. This is well documented on my channel, but especially when you're talking about Zack Snyder and what he's done, he came in with a vision and we lost that vision because the movies weren't doing that well. And then unfortunately there was a tragic incident in his life that took him away from Justice League and we got the Whedon version, Joss Whedon. So who knows where that's going. But hey, like I said, I'm excited to see what's coming down the road. And there's a lot of news I'm sure to come out this summer that we haven't even heard from. I'm expecting that we're going to see something from the Batman at some point moving forward in the next couple of months. I see the comment DC Fandom will be a DC mic drop event. I think that's very true. DC Fandom is really kind of gearing up to be fascinating. I mean, they're definitely playing off of a Comic-Con at home type event, but we'll see. We shall see. All right, I'm seeing Griff is back here. I'm going to add him in and hope that the lagging isn't continuing. Technology's terrible, isn't it?
It is. It's also partially my fault because I was doing a lot of video work and forgot to restart my computer, so my RAM was really clogged up. So I had to restart my browser. I ran like a couple of cleaning up programs, and so I should be good now.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's unprofessional. And,
it really is. You should just never have me back again. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, Griff, let's actually start from the beginning there with the Keaton news because sure. when we're putting it together the podcast tomorrow, I'm just going to splice that part in.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So basically what I know is that obviously I don't think anyone was really doubting it, but the Keaton stuff is like 100% in the works. It's not confirmed, although I'm confident that they'll probably announce something regarding it during the DC Fandom thing. That just seems like the right place, and especially if these deals are like really close to being completed, and if they want to get the ball rolling on Flashpoint and stuff like that, they're going to want to have their ducks in a row for DC Fandom to start generating hype and all that good stuff. I will say I haven't heard anything about like Jeffrey Dean Morgan or Thomas Wayne. I know he was like in an earlier draft of the script or something like that. But as of right now, I don't think he's in the script, and I don't think they're looking to bring him in. But again, that could change. So there's that. And then there is the what do you call it? Keaton's role in the Flash movie. So Keaton is they're basically looking at him for an extended cameo or a small role. I know I was a little ambiguous when I said cameo. I didn't really know how big of a role that meant when I initially said it, but what that basically means is that he's going to be in the film. It's not just going to be like a Stan Lee cameo, but if the deal falls through, they can pluck him out and the film as a whole is largely unaffected. So I also heard rumors that I guess Christian Bale was being considered as their backup. I don't really buy that personally, and I don't think Bale would ever come back to the role.
Yeah, that's
I mean, I know at one point in time, he talked about, him and Nolan doing a fourth Batman movie, but then Nolan was like, no, because he doesn't want to do it. Rightfully so. I think the Dark Knight Rises perfectly concludes that story arc. But yeah, so it's going to be like an extended role, and all that good stuff. And Flashpoint as a whole is basically just they're using it as their way, I guess, of like, if this contract falls through, then Flashpoint, we can just write it out or whatever. If this falls through, then Flashpoint, we can write it out. So it's basically their get out of jail free card. I go into that a little bit more. I did a breakdown of this whole thing, so if you guys want to go check it out, you can check out the video. I don't know, if you want to link it somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's that. And then the other one is that the Keaton deal is about like 80% done. They're just kind of, a lot of it sort of like hinders on, Michael Keaton wanting Tim Burton to come back and direct a Batman Beyond film, because they're basically planting the seeds for Batman Beyond in the Flashpoint movie. That's why they're going after Keaton in the first place. And so that's Batman Beyond is definitely something that's on their mind, which they're looking to get that film out by like 2023. But obviously, given the state of the world and the industry right now, that very well could change. And I wouldn't be surprised if that changed. But that's just kind of what I have. So looking to do Batman Beyond. They want to bring back, or Keaton really wants Tim Burton to come back. That makes sense. There's been a large gap since they last worked together on Batman. There's a lot of character, exploration that they can go through. And, it'd be nice to see Tim Burton, I think, doing a superhero film with modern superhero technology. And whatnot, and whatnot. So those were basically the few things that I revealed on the Sean Chandler podcast. I did get a little bit more information since then. So if you want to listen to any of that, you can head over and check out the video that I did talking about it. I talked about possibly Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman coming back.
Oh my.
I talked a little bit. I gave some insight into what his suit might look like in Flashpoint and all that stuff. So yeah, if you want the full breakdown, just go check out that video. I was like really thorough with it.
Definitely. That's awesome. It's one thing though to have Keaton back. I start to worry if they open the door to other characters like Catwoman, and does that mean we'll get Halle Berry's Catwoman, or are they just going to throw that out the window completely?
Well, I think everyone's basically forgotten about that. I mean, I don't know. To me, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman makes sense because like that thread was sort of left hanging at the end of Batman Returns, and so like exploring, the relationship between those two characters and the amount of time that is past and all that stuff, I think would be good, and it would I don't know. I think it would work out well. And Michelle Pfeiffer has been vocal about, if there's a way I could come back and be Catwoman, I'd love to. I think she was amazing in Batman Returns. I think she steals that whole movie. So yeah, I'd love to see her come back personally. I don't know. That to me was one of the things that excited me. If you get Keaton, Burton, and Pfeiffer back, then we're talking about something really interesting. The only thing that comes to my mind that could be an issue is this reunion going to overshadow an actual Batman Beyond movie? I don't know, but like I assume that Burton would figure out something with the story so that it services Batman Beyond and Terry McGinnis, and that it would service the legacy characters as well. So
what do you think this says for the overall DC extended universe in and of itself? Because what we're seeing is DC has a lot of branches out there. They have, what we've seen with the characters that comprise Justice League. And then of course we're getting the Snyder cut, but we have, Michael Keaton back in play as Batman, as, Robert Pattinson is about to make his debut. Ben Affleck's definitely going to be back on screen given the Snyder cut, but standalone Joker, 2 Suicide Squads. Is this a reset for them? Is this a way for them to kind of pull everything together?
I mean, listen, they have a multiverse. They have all these legacy characters, and they have, people who are actors and creators that people associate with these characters. Why not use them? It's something bold. It's different. It's fresh. Like, I don't think audiences are going to get confused. I think studios don't necessarily give them the benefit of the doubt most of the times. And I think this is a case where it's like, okay, just trust them to do this. Also, I think a lot of the stuff with the multiverse and whatnot, a lot of that could be relegated to HBO Max. HBO Max has really provided them with the perfect opportunity to just like test out a bunch of different things. Like I know there was like stuff circulating around that like, oh, Ben Affleck's not done as Batman. Like he's going to like come back and do some reshoots for the Snyder Cut. He might make appearances on HBO Max material. And so it's like, while I'm not like 100% buying that, nor do I have any information on that, I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility. I mean, I don't know. To me, DC is just doing more interesting things. They're taking creative swings. They're really just like, I don't know. They're letting their characters and the legacy that they have sort of speak for themselves. So, you know, to my knowledge, the Batman and Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves, that's their prestige thing. They're going to put all of their focus behind that. But like the Keaton stuff, Batman Beyond, you know, the Snyder Cut and all that stuff, that'll be, I guess, supplemental material that they can put on like HBO Max or whatever. So I don't think it's as crazy as like all of this like information overload makes it sound. But, you know, we'll see. I think we're going to get a lot of announcements at Fandom for the future of the DCEU. Maybe even Comic-Con, too. I don't know. Maybe they'll have like some sort of thing there. I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. I'm excited for what they do. I'm a DC guy through and through. I love Marvel films, don't get me wrong, but I'm excited to see that there's something happening here. And, you know, we're definitely going to learn more about it come August. But you bring up a really interesting point with HBO Max, because when we look at what Disney Plus is doing for Marvel, but also going to do for, you know, the Star Wars universe, and we have The Mandalorian really giving them an opportunity to play with different, you know, a different tone than you see in the movies that we've seen thus far. That's also what you get with a streaming service like HBO Max. We have a Green Lantern show we know is in the works. But, you know, you're right. It's definitely a testing ground for a lot of different things.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just look at it as like them doing live action animated films, basically, or like they taking cues from their animated series and stuff like that. I don't know. I just it's interesting, and I think what makes me more excited about that is that the Marvel shows on Disney Plus are again connected to the cinematic universe at large. To my knowledge, the DC shows that they're working on, or the possible DC shows that they're working on, are like all of these ideas. I don't know if they're not going to be connected to a larger universe. Like some of them might be standalone. Some of them might connect. Like, I don't know if they decide to continue the Snyderverse in some capacity on HBO Max, then they can start plugging in shows there that connect to the Snyderverse. And then you have like separate universes. And because of Flashpoint, you can have all the multiverses. So you can have a different Batman. You can have, you can have like the Robert Pattinson Batman. You can have the Michael Keaton Batman, if, you know, whatever. And it's like, I think honestly, Spider-Verse opened the door for this. Spider-Verse showed that you can have multiple people playing Spider-Man, and just people will accept it. You can do crazy time warp things, or have characters come from different universes that are like just like balls to the wall nuts, and still have a great story at the core of it, and people will accept it. So I like that they're taking that mentality.
I agree with you there. And let's not forget that we also have to figure out how the CW shows are going to be intertwined or related, because we did have the crossover in Crisis on Infinite Earths with you know, Ezra Miller's Flash, and we're gonna touch on that in a second with Ezra Miller, but you know, he did cross over.
Right. I don't think that anything's really going to connect there. I can see how people would draw like those conclusions. I just don't necessarily buy into that, because, well, one, I don't know if Ezra Miller is going to stay on as the Flash, nor do I really want him to or think he should. Two, I don't know. I feel like that was just kind of like a cute little stunt, not like it's really setting the foundation for anything. Because then it gets just too messy. Then if you're looping in the CW universe, and it's just like, okay, guys, like there's no focus there. At least with this, like they're using Flashpoint to expand their universe, and then like they'll go from there. They're not worried about the television stuff. Plus, I don't know. I don't really keep up with the CW stuff anymore. I've really just like lost interest, and I feel like a lot of people aren't really digging what they're doing. It's just kind of dipped in quality. So again, I could be wrong. Maybe people are absolutely loving it right now, but I don't know. I think that the CW stuff is sort of on their last legs here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I think we talked about this in the past, but it really has just become so interconnected that to spend time on each of those shows every season and really follow everything is just too much of a commitment at this point. I mean, you have 3 or 4 of them now, or 5, is it even 5? I don't even know.
I don't even know, man. Like Arrow's done, and they like just took that show to the woodshed and killed it in the worst way possible. I didn't, at least from what I've read, I haven't actually watched it, but it sounded horrible. Flash is just completely, I don't know. I just don't care about it anymore. Legends of Tomorrow was good for a while, and then I don't know. I just don't watch it. It's probably still their best show, honestly. And then Batgirl isn't working for them. Supergirl sucks. Like I don't know. Nothing about the CW universe interests me or like gets me excited. So I don't want to see that like incorporated into a cinematic universe. It's like it feels very much made for television, you know?
Yeah. Well, as a surprise for you, I have Greg Berlanti here, the creator of all of these and showrunner for all of these, to chat with you. No.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'll just, there you go. Well, now he knows what I think.
Give him a piece of my mind. So you mentioned the Ezra Miller thing, and for people that are listening that may not know what's going on with that, there literally was a video a few months ago where he chokeslammed a woman, and we haven't really heard much from that since, right? Like, I don't know that he released a statement. Warner Brothers has been hush hush on it.
I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just something that just sort of like made the rounds for a little bit, and they haven't really touched on it since then, which is just, it's weird. Like I feel like, I don't know, I feel for most people that would be not career ending, but at least like you'd lose whatever role you had right now that was making you the most money. Like, I don't know. I think what'll probably happen is they'll test the waters with Fantastic Beasts. And if that turns out to be a shit show just with him in general, then maybe they'll recast. But I don't know. At the same time, when Fantastic Beasts 3 comes out, I assume the Flash will be like deep into production. So I don't know. I've always, that's been the one casting choice in the entire DCEU that I've just been like, no, I don't buy it.
Why is that?
I just don't think he's a good, like nothing that he's done has sold me on him being Barry Allen. Like maybe this goes back to the fact that I think he's really good when he's playing a certain kind of character. You take him out of that element and I don't think he excels as well. And just, I don't know, granted, we haven't seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, so I have no idea if that improves the character at all. But like from what I've seen of him as Flash, he just, it was a very superficial interpretation of who Barry Allen was. And I just don't buy this guy as Barry Allen. And that's why it's been the one casting choice out of everyone in the DCEU where I've just been like, yeah, Snyder, I think you missed the mark on that one. Jason Momoa, perfect. Great, different interpretation of Aquaman, but still feels classic in some regards. Gal Gadot, I know people had their doubts about her. I thought she was perfect from the get-go. She's great. And she, people don't give her enough credit for how well she's able to just like emote physically. I think she's a great physical actress. And then, Ben Affleck was a stroke of genius, and we got robbed of him getting solo movies. Henry Cavill is the perfect Superman. I want to see him get an actual film, like a Man of Steel 2 or something like that. Yeah, and I mean, Michael Shannon as Zod. Yeah, well, okay. The only other one that I was kind of iffy on was Lex, but after BVS Ultimate in that post-credit scene in Justice League, I was like, I can kind of hop on board with this. Yeah, I can kind of hop on board with.
Took a little longer.
Yeah, but like, Ezra Miller just doesn't do it. Like, I don't know, man. It's just it's never worked for me.
I'd be interested to see if that changes given what we may get next year with the Snyder Cut, because
Yeah.
there was a lot of background I think that was filmed for the Flash. Not a ton of it, obviously, because he's getting his own solo movie, and we're supposed to get more of it there. But there are some other scenes that hopefully will provide some balance to what we saw on screen. Because if you go by just what you saw in Justice League, he really did play that like comedic foil to the rest of the cast.
Oh, it was awful. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but then again, it reeked of Joss Whedon. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
What do you make? Did you see the news that Ray Fisher came out and quote unquote retracted his statement supporting Joss Whedon?
Yeah, I did. I don't think I read it. I think I probably just saw the tweets about it. But yeah, I don't remember what he actually said in that statement at Comic-Con. Did you watch the video?
I didn't watch the full video, but his statement was pretty much just like, yeah, Joss was great. Like there wasn't anything major.
I understand why he'd come out and say something like that. I do think so. It's a little unprofessional. I also think that like it's not Joss Whedon's fault. Like he was hired to do a job.
Yeah.
He went in and he did that job. If you're going to blame someone, blame the executives at Warner Brothers who hired Joss Whedon and Danny Elfman. They're the ones who botched the whole thing. So, I mean, unless, and I think I read this in the tweet, unless like Joss Whedon like ran a horrible set and was like a dick to everyone on set, that's kind of unfair, and I feel like while I don't like the movie that Joss Whedon made, and you can tell a lot of it was redone by Joss Whedon and whatnot, listen, he came in under a microscope, like doing something that was supposed to come out in like a matter of months, completely reshooting an entire movie basically. And so I don't know. Of course, I don't think it was ever going to be good at that point. So,
it's true.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah.
I think he was an easy target, or is an easy target.
Of course. Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's the studio, it's the execs that made those decisions. And with Ray Fisher, I mean, not including him in the movie as much. And I think you're seeing a lot of this, right? To think about what Zack Snyder has said in tweets and in his live that he did for Man of Steel when he kind of revealed this, Ray Fisher and Cyborg in particular is supposedly the heart of the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, and you get the sense of that in Justice League. I think I even said when I initially reviewed it, everything with Cyborg and that character and what they were doing with him and pulling on the heartstrings and whatnot, that was the best stuff in that movie. And I still maintain that Cyborg, with all that movie's flaws, Cyborg is a character I want to see more of in a solo capacity.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll get the full vision with the Snyder Cut, but like Ray Fisher killed it. And I think, like he's the best part of that film, like hands down.
I'm with you there. I really liked him. And I think that removing the scenes that we would have seen that would have given a little more background of Cyborg really, and the performance of Justice League in particular, really kind of hurt the moving forward with a standalone Cyborg that had been rumored forever. And, and of course the Flash has been delayed. It wasn't supposed to come out like this year, next year. It just keeps getting pushed back.
I don't even know anymore. But
he's rumored to be he was rumored to be a big part of that, as sort of like the buddy thing that they started playing up in Justice League with the Flash and Cyborg. Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah. I hope the Flash isn't too involved in like whatever Cyborg's doing next, because I don't know. I guess the Snyder Cut will fix that, but I never really like bought that chemistry in the film. Again, Ezra Miller just isn't working for me in this capacity. But
who would you cast as Flash on the spot?
Someone unknown. I don't know. Yeah. Someone like casting Ray Fisher as Cyborg, stroke of genius. Because one, he's unknown. Two, he's a really solid performer on stage. And so this is like his big breakout role. This is the film that'll like elevate him to a new level of stardom. That's what should have happened with The Flash. Like, I mean, granted, like Ezra Miller isn't like a household name, but like he's pretty well known in the indie world, and he's got a pretty big role in the Fantastic Beasts films. So, I don't know. It's interesting because I guess it depends on like what age they want Flash to be. Because I mean, like, I don't know, for the longest time I was like, oh, make Ryan Gosling the Flash. And if they're doing Flash, I mean, honestly, I think he'd be a great choice. But then also, like, if they're doing like Flashpoint, a middle-aged Flash, like who's married and whatnot, and like is forced to deal with this whatever that's going on, I think that's perfect casting for Ryan Gosling. But if they're doing someone younger, I don't know, like get someone new, like that's my biggest issue with just like the industry in general is like everyone, they cycle between the same couple of actors.
It's true.
Or like, you know, someone like a Tom Holland, he makes it big in Spider-Man and now everyone wants to cast Tom Holland for this particular role. I don't know. I miss the touch of like really visionary casting directors.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that in quite a bit when it comes to especially DC. I mean, I think, like you said, I think Zack Snyder hit it out of the park with a lot of his casting choices. But
yeah, and I almost wonder how much of that was him or just like the casting director that he puts his faith in. Yeah,
that's very true. I don't know. I'm wondering if this conversation will look different a year from now or however long from now when we get that Snyder cut and kind of see a different.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much hope in that movie actually being something great, but
even if it sucks, it'll just on principle it'll be better than what we got.
Yeah,
you know. I mean, granted, like it was supposed to be a 2-part thing, and I'm sure it'll leave on a cliffhanger. We will never get part 2 unless it does really well, and then they decide to do a part 2 for whatever reason. I don't know. It could happen. Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, like the way I see it, even if it sucks, at least it's like an artist's true vision, and it'll feel like the proper sequel to BVS or the proper Zack Snyder version of a Justice League movie. And that's ultimately, like, I think you speak to any of the fans out there who've been advocating for the Snyder cut. That's ultimately what they want. They don't care about if it's good or bad. They just want to see the artist's vision realized.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there, and I've kind of gone on about this a lot, but you know, WB knew what they were getting when it came to Zack Snyder. He didn't just pitch one movie; he pitched what he wanted to do with, you know, the multitude of them. And I think they were too reactionary in a lot of the decisions they made, and then unfortunately, you know, personal tragedy interjected itself as well. But we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah, I mean, but that's also why I think it's a good thing that they, you know, had a change of leadership. And you look at the projects that they've done since that change of leadership: Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, Joker, an Academy Award-winning movie. Like they're taking they're moving in a direction that is separating them from the rest of the comic book studios. They're playing into that mentality that Warner Brothers has always had of, you know, being a studio that makes like exciting, you know, IP driven projects, but allowing it to also be auteur driven. Warner Brothers is a studio that cares as much about the craft and the artistry behind filmmaking as they do about making money. And I think this decision about the Snyder cut clearly shows that. So I mean, yeah, I'm excited for the future of DC and the projects they have in store. So yeah.
Well, and you know, the other thing is it's nice to see that they're not just trying to catch up to Marvel with doing exactly what Marvel has done.
Right. And honestly, I don't want to see them do that because there are times when I don't like what Marvel is doing, and I think the interconnected universe hinders them from just telling really interesting stories, which is why I like the Ant-Man movies. Like, sure, there's little, like, you know, connections here or there, but they're doing their own thing, man. They're self-contained. They're just like they're playing into the legacy of Hank Pym and the demons that he has going on. They you know, tackle Scott being a father and like that adventure, and they do their own thing. And I understand that they're light. They're, you know, some people might call them forgettable, but I just I appreciate they feel like classic Stan Lee comic books, Stanley and Jack Kirby comic books. And that's what I love about them. So that's just an example, but like, I wish, you know, I hope in this next phase for the MCU stuff, they start to just, you know, take more risks and worry less about interconnectivity and more about just like really great stories and
loosen up a bit. Honestly, you know, like,
sure.
I think that's what was great about Ant-Man was it was just a loose, like fun movie. And that's what took it back to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Yeah. And even in Ant-Man and the Wasp too. Both of those movies are just like are really, really high on like my MCU rankings. And people always like look at me and they're just like, "You're what? Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, go back and rewatch them. They're fun and they know exactly what they are and they're confident in it."
What's number one? Thor: Dark World?
Yeah, of course. No, I think for me, I go back and forth between Winter Soldier and Endgame.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Nice. I'm Ragnarok. Definitely Ragnarok.
See, I really don't like that movie.
Really interesting.
Yeah. I think it's a giant mess that contradicts itself throughout the entirety of it.
We'll have to talk about that some other time because I'm very interested.
Yeah, it's too long of a conversation. I'll give you my other hot take. I also think Civil War is overrated. I think that's another movie that doesn't commit to its ideologies.
I agree with you there.
So.
I would agree with you on that one. Well, we're 50-50 on those two.
All right, we'll take that. We're getting better. There we go.
We're very good. Well, hey, Griff, I really appreciate you popping on, but tell everyone where they can find you, all the different things that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. It was a lot of fun. We can do it again sometime. It'll be great. But
definitely,
yeah, you guys can head on over to the Film Speak channel. I've got like interviews, reviews. I just put out. Obviously, I'll plug that Batman Beyond video again if you want to check it out. With all the breakdown I have there. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, definitely head on over there. And then if you want to just like follow my random thoughts periodically throughout the day, you can go to Twitter and follow me at Griff Schiller.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a lot. We'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Absolutely. Thanks again for having me on.
Of course. Thanks, Griff. All right, guys, before wrapping up, I want to plug an upcoming short episode of the pod. It's called A Quick Bite, which we will be playing around with that name a little bit. But I'll be joined by Ziana, a.k.a. the Basic Cinephile, to discuss the recent allegations of sexual assault against Ansel Elgort, the response on social media, and where we go from here. That episode will drop Friday morning. Check it out. It's a really good conversation. It's a deep conversation. It was fun that one that I really had fun discussing. Fun in the sense of diving into something that is so prevalent and so important to discuss and bring to light. And then if you are so inclined, on Wednesday, July 11th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, join us for a special 7:30 p.m. Eastern edition of Guys Movie Quizzo Marvel Edition over on YouTube. Come enjoy the chat, have some fun, and maybe win something. As you can tell, this is episode 2. We will be getting into a better rhythm as we go. I'm very happy to have the people here that I do. And once again, this will be available on every platform that you can think of for podcasts tomorrow morning. But finally, before we go, because it's just that important and I will not shut up about it, if you're going to be outside around people or inside a public establishment, wear that damn mask that I know you have. It's the least we all can do to try and slow down this terrible virus. And it's ravaging our world, and especially the United States right now. We need this to go away. It is very dangerous for all. So please wear your damn mask. Pretend you're Bane or Sub-Zero or someone that you like. All right, just do it. Other than that, on that fun note, I will see you next week.